Coming up on Superhero Saturday, we're going to dive into the world of classical music and see all of the different instruments that are in Annie's musical closet. Hello, Super Friends! Welcome back to another episode of Superhero Saturday, where we talk about the arts of superheroes, storytelling, and so much more. And today we're really talking about so much more. As many of you might be aware, we're kind of in lockdown right now, and one of the things that I've actually enjoyed most about having my time especially concentrated in my house is that I've been able to go through a ton of my old stuff. And let me tell you, I do like to hold on to a ton of stuff. But thankfully, I've been able to kind of go through and process through all the different closets and kind of start getting rid of all of the things that I've been holding on to for no good reason. As you can see in the closet behind me, besides the arcade game that's in that section, this whole thing and so much more is just musical instruments. You see, back in the day, before I really committed to the author thing, I thought I wanted to be a middle school band teacher. Music is just one of my natural superpowers, and I really liked the idea of being able to share music with a bunch of little kids running around just experimenting, making weird sounds. Unfortunately, that has led to an, let's say, bordering on hoarding pattern of mine of just collecting musical instruments in basically any shape and kind of stockpiling them into my closets. The other day I actually did go through a couple of different closets and found some old broken down instruments and got rid of them. But that was before a friend of mine suggested the idea for this video, and that's just to go through and show you all of the different instruments that I have, what they are, why I like them, what they do, and what they sound like, and just kind of demonstrate all of the cool things that I have. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's get started on Annie's musical instrument closet. Full disclosure, this isn't even going to be all of the musical instruments that I own, just most of them. So the instrument that I use the most is actually this guy right here, my acoustic electric guitar. And I am one of those weirdos who likes to name her instruments. So this is Tigress. She's super cool, and she's got these like really neat little stripes all along the design. Oh, so pretty, good kitty. And it is an acoustic guitar, but it has an electronic pickup, which means you can plug it into a PA system, and the sound of the acoustic guitar goes through the speakers and all of that. Guitar is one of the oldest instruments in the world. It's existed in all sorts of variations for thousands of years. The modern 6-string guitar basically works just like any of the rest of them. You have strings that you pluck and vibrate to create a noise, and then you use this to change the note up or down. And then you put your fingers together on the different strings to create chords, which are a bunch of different notes stacked together to make a sound. And it's a super nice instrument, and you can take it anywhere, and it's great for sing-alongs and all kinds of things, which is why I use it for worship music. I really like her sound. It's a pretty good intermediate level instrument, and I've been using it for worship music for 5 or 6 years now, and I've really loved every minute of it. And if you want to check out some of my other videos on this channel, some of the older ones, I actually did a couple of songs and covers of songs that I played on this very guitar. Got to get a couple of music stands out of the way. My mom actually found this guy at a garage sale or something. It's a really neat Latin American instrument, I think. I don't remember what it's called, and I was going to Google it, so Editing Annie can put that up on the screen now. It's actually really interesting because you don't play it like a typical like school recorder. As you can see, it is just a hole in the top. So if I can figure it out right now. Don't worry, folks, I am a professional. Oh, there we go. The principle of any type of flute like this is to split the air across an opening, and this is the opening that you're supposed to split the air on, and that's what makes the sound. But the finger holes are just enormous on this guy, so let me give it another shot. So that's a note. But anyway, this is just a cool little flute of some kind. Now this is a fun guy from the early days of my musical instrument hoarding. A trumpet! I did buy this at a Goodwill or a St. Vincent de Paul, some secondhand store. As you can see from right here on the valve, I have a tiny little bit of yarn tied to it because there's a dent in the valve somewhere or something, and it tends to stick if I push it all the way down. So that was my temporary fix. The air still goes through, so there you go, temporary fix. I actually really love playing the trumpet. I played trumpet for 1 year in marching band. Trumpet is just super fun. Something like that. So the way you make sound on a trumpet, for those of you who don't know, is you make a farting noise with your mouth. I say a farting noise because middle school band teacher. Of course, little boys are going to love making a farting sound with your mouth. It's also known as buzzing in the classical music world, and it goes a little bit like this. It's been a while, sorry. And then you put this little brass mouthpiece on that little buzzy hole and buzz. And then this part of the trumpet just amplifies that sound and gives you a little bit of control over what note comes out of the end of the horn. There you have it, the trumpet. Okay, what's next? So we're going to move over here for a second and find a few of our percussion instruments. So this is basically just a shaker, but it looks like the instrument over there. This is another secondhand store find. It's called a guiro. It's a Latin American instrument that's generally made out of a gourd. As you can see, this is the top of the plant. It's got ridges in the top here that make sound when you run something across them. It's super loud, but it's totally fun when you get into the groove with like a Latin piece and you go. And that was fun. Also, this one is super cool because it has all sorts of carvings on the side of this. Like this is some kind of band, it looks like, a mariachi band or something. Plus it's got this little thing attached to it to get the rhythm going. And then we have this guy over here, which is going to be hard to see because I can't see the floor. This is called a Cajun box drum, and it really is just a big wooden box with, this one has little feet on it. And if you can see inside, see that thing on the back is a snare, which helps it to make a snappy sound when you hit it. And like any percussion instrument, you hit it and make a bunch of different sounds. This guy's really cool because it's really portable, and you can make it sound like an entire drum set, but it's just one box. There you go. Next, we have another really old instrument. This is Susie, the alto saxophone. Saxophone is one of my main instruments, but I actually never really played alto saxophone too much in very many ensembles, but it is a ton of fun to play. It is a brass instrument because you can see it's shiny and it looks like gold, but it's also a woodwind instrument because it uses a tiny piece of wood called a reed to produce sound. Just like a trumpet, you use this part, which includes the mouthpiece, to create a small sound. And then you use the rest of the instrument as just an amplification system for the sound, and it has buttons to give you control. Susie the saxophone. Okay, so this is a little embarrassing. I am mostly a woodwind instrument player and some little bit of brass and a little bit of like piano and percussion and stuff like that. I am not very comfortable with classical strings, but I found this violin on Craigslist, I believe, and it was really cheap, and I was like, yes, this is a really good deal and it looks super cool. And really, it's like really cheap, and it hardly even makes any sound. This is my albino looking violin. Now a violin is basically the first thing you think of when you think about classical music. It is a string instrument with a bow, and what you do is you use the strings like a guitar to make a noise and change the pitch, but you use the bow, and bear with me because I am not a really good violin player, and you drag the bow across it to make sound. And I haven't got any rosin, so it makes no sound. This is like the lightest instrument I own because it's so cheap, but it looks so cool. I was like, yeah, I gotta try it. But what we can do is play pizzicato, which means you pluck the strings like a guitar. Y'all ready for this? There we go, I played a song. Let's put that away. I was literally about to say, don't do this at home. This is one of 3 clarinets that I actually owned at the start of this quarantine. I bought the first 2 clarinets and they were really cheap Bundy clarinets that were actually already broken, and I tried to piece them together to make them even kind of create a sound. But this guy I found, again, I think this was at a secondhand store. Man, I really score. Guys, go to secondhand stores when we break quarantine. So this is my clarinet. It does have a nice heft to it. It's really sturdy and it feels like it's made out of wood instead of resin like a lot of the cheaper clarinets. It does work pretty well. I think that I've only used it a couple of times. Clarinet is actually, I think, my least favorite instrument to play, maybe besides tuba. I just really can't reach the low notes on tuba, and this is basically the opposite of my primary instrument. And also, I don't have any clarinet reeds, so this is a saxophone reed. It works the same as an alto saxophone, it's just made out of wood instead of brass. So we're gonna fake a sound here on the clarinet. Again, this is what makes the sound, and this is what amplifies and controls the sound. That actually works surprisingly better than I thought. Maybe it is a clarinet reed. I don't think so. There you go. And clarinet is actually interesting, even though I don't particularly care to play it. It's different than a lot of the other woodwind instruments because a lot of the other ones you want to blow warm air, but I've been told that you actually need to use cold air through a clarinet. So if you like hold your face up to a window or a piece of glass or something and you blow hot air on it, that's how you can see the fog. But if you blow cold air on it and it doesn't fog up, that's the kind of air you have to use to make the clarinet sound good. Oh ho ho, now we're getting into big stuff. This is my brother's old trombone. Trombone was his primary instrument when he was in school, and this is a really nice instrument that he used like basically all of high school, I think. This is a lot like the trumpet because it's a brass instrument. It's all shiny, it doesn't have any wood attached to it. You make a buzzing sound, or a farting sound, with your mouth. A nice big one. And then you use the mouthpiece. This one is a lot bigger than the trumpet one. I'll show you in a minute. You blow like this. And then this whole thing is just the amplification for that buzzing sound. The trombone is really probably one of the most unique instruments out of the band, although they all have their own differences, because it does have a slide attached to it, also known as a slide trombone. That's what allows you to kind of maneuver the pitch up and down with a lot of accuracy because you can really just go to town on any of the different notes. Trombone is really complicated for this reason because you do have to be very precise in where you land the slide to get the right note at the right time. And you can see the difference here. This is the trombone mouthpiece and this is the trumpet mouthpiece. While this one is longer, the cup size is a lot different. The bigger the instrument, the lower the sound. The smaller the instrument, the higher the sound. The trombone's weird sibling, the euphonium, or the baby tuba, is actually my favorite brass instrument to play. It has about the same mouthpiece size as the trombone, but it has valves on it, so it makes it a lot easier for me. And you still get that rich, medium tone of the brass that you love so much on the trombone. This is what middle school band teachers do when in their free time. So this is another one that I have a duplicate of. This is my very first actual classical musical instrument. This is my oboe from middle school. My parents bought this for me when I graduated from 8th grade. And it got me all the way to my first college audition. It's made out of plastic and it really does not sound super great. But later on, I upgraded with my skill level to this instrument, which feels empty. Is it in the other case? It's not even in that case. It's actually in this case that I made specifically for my oboe. Oh, so shiny. It's got musical prints on the inside. Now, the oboe is arguably one of the hardest instruments to play. And let me tell you why. This guy right here, this pain in the butt, this finicky little nonsense guy who can make your instrument sound like it was just handcrafted in heaven by the angels or forged in the fiery pits of hell. Because it is such a tiny little piece of wood that the oboist has to carve and get exactly like razor thin, sharp and thin. It's just a pain to figure out how to make this guy work and to make it work right and for it to keep working right even when you travel between cities, which is what I often do. You have to also get a ton of really, really fast air from in your lungs and through your diaphragm into this tiny little tube and through there, which is really just absolutely small. This is my pinky finger, guys. It's smaller than that. And then through this instrument to make it sound like my favorite sound. Now, like we've talked about before, all musical instruments need something to make a sound and then something to amplify the sound. So this is this guy's sound. And this is this guy's sound. The story of how I decided to play this instrument is that back in middle school, when they were doing like all instrument tryouts and they were showing us the display of all the different instruments you could play, the clarinet primary teacher came up and showed us a little oboe like the plastic one that I'll show you over here. And she said, well, you know, my reed's broken and this isn't a really good instrument and I'm not a really good oboe player, but I want to give you a demonstration. So this is what it sounds like. And the moment that I heard the sound come out of that oboe, I was like, that's my guy. And the rest is history. So let's get out this plastic guy and show you the difference. More dense instruments produce higher quality of sound. So this guy is made out of plastic rather than the really thick grenadilla wood that the oboe is made out of, and so the sound just kind of leaks out everywhere. Wow, I totally bad-mouthed that guy, but it sounds actually a lot better than I remember. Not terrible, but in a professional setting, this would not fly. This is another Goodwill find. It is a flute. So, dang, I have a whole woodwind section in here. Like we were talking about with the Latin American flute earlier, like all flutes, what you need is something with a hole in it that you can use to split an airstream in half about, and that produces the sound that goes through this and then goes through this amplification system. This is the noise by itself. The reason that the flute is challenging is that really what's happening is you're only using 50% of your air because half of it is going up and half of it is going down into the instrument. So the first time I actually played flute in a concert setting, I got a little lightheaded. It's a flute. I don't play flute too much, but it does the job. Now this is a real treasure. Well, maybe not so much a treasure, but just a historical artifact. I found this, I believe, at a garage sale, and I actually didn't know what it was when I first looked at it. It says collegiate, so it's a marching instrument, but when you take a look inside, you'll see that it looks not like any marching instrument that I had ever seen before. Ooh! So I did some research on this instrument because it looks unlike anything I had ever seen before, but it has a clarinet mouthpiece on it, so I was like, is this a metal clarinet? And actually, it is. Apparently, back in the days around the First World War, these instruments were used instead of the traditional plastic or resin or wood instruments in the day, the clarinets specifically, because they needed those materials for the war effort. So they switched for a time to metal clarinets. This is not a classical instrument. This is an instrument designed specifically for marching band. It actually has this little thing right here, which is just to screw on a lyre, which is what is used to hold the sheet music. So you could be marching along and the sheet music is right here in front of your face so that you can read it while you're walking around. This is a historical artifact as far as I'm concerned, but it does have quite a few problems on it. A lot of the softer, more perishable items, which are the pads that help to keep the little holes shut tight enough to change the note, have gone missing, and I apparently have replaced them with little pieces of cloth. If we could replace the pads, it could be a working instrument. I would love to be able to play this bad guy, even though I don't really care for clarinet. But it's still not a clarinet reed, so that's unfortunate. Let's see if we can do anything. Nope. Oh, no, it's got that. It's just not going through here. Let's play an open note, maybe. Oh, yeah. Those buttons do not work. Excuse me, I'm trying to work here. So it definitely has potential. I mean, there's nothing on here that can really break because everything is really securely soldered on. A really cool, probably 100-year-old instrument. Nice. Let's do our last wind instrument, which is this guy over here, whose name I have forgotten. Boy, that's just sad. This is my tenor saxophone. Alto saxophone, tenor saxophone. See how it basically just fits right inside it? It's so big it doesn't even fit in the frame. I got it from a guy at my church who sold it to me for really cheap, and he had been using it, as he called it, for rock and roll playing. So it comes with a metal mouthpiece, which is really interesting. I like to use the regular plastic one myself, but it is a really good quality instrument, and I actually play it this is probably my top 3. I usually play guitar right now, and I play oboe, and I play saxophone. So oboe is usually the instrument that I use for classical music, and saxophone is the instrument that I use for jazz. And boy, do I love jazz. And guitar I use for worship music when I'm not singing. This is bigger than the alto saxophone, but the principle is the same. You take the mouthpiece, you make some awful sound with it, and you stick it on the amplification system, and you control it with these. Let's see if we can do something like this. I have way too much fun with these, and you can see why I have so many. So I think we're going to wrap it up there for today. I actually do still have a few more instruments. I have an upright piano upstairs. I have an electric keyboard in here and an electric guitar, but I would have to plug the amp in somewhere, and I don't know if I can do that right now. There's too much stuff everywhere. But this gets you guys through all of my classical instruments, and that's what we wanted to see anyway. So I hope you guys had fun going through my instrument closet with me. I think this gives us to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Gotta end on an even number with this shaker. And there you have it, 15 different classical musical instruments. Yeah, we can count guitar as classical. Sometimes it's crazy to have a music superpower. Thanks so much for watching, Super Friends. If you can go ahead and give us a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, that would be amazing. And if you want to see more videos like this and other type of things, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. You can also join our team by going over to Patreon and supporting us over there. And you can find all of my books, which have something to do with a little bit of music, at www.fearless9.com. Thanks so much, super friends, and we'll see you next week.